My name is Jean William. I'm 30. And the night I realized my family didn't love me the way I loved them, the air in my mother's dining room went cold enough to crack glass. It was supposed to be a soft Sunday, my lasagna still steaming, garlic butter glistening on the bread, a bottle of Merlot I couldn't really afford, but brought anyway because every time I offered something from my hands, I hoped they might offer something from their hearts. My mother did her small, distracted smile, the kind she wears for polite neighbors. Then she pointed at the takeout Derek had plunked in the center of the table like a flag. Wings and limp fries. Real food, she said. Laughter skittered across the table. I smiled back like a person who doesn't feel the splinter until later. They talked flights and hotel blocks and group chats I'd never seen. I waited for a pause others might step into. When it came, I said, as calmly as I could, "Just tell me when the reunion is. I'll book early this time." Derek didn't even look up. "You're not family. Don't show up." It wasn't a shout. It was worse. Casual, practiced cruelty in a voice that knew it would be protected. The table laughed. My father slapped his knee. My mother's mouth tried not to smile and failed. I stared long enough for one person, any person, to say it was too far. No one did. I didn't throw the wine. I didn't flip the table. I stood, slid on my coat, and took my lasagna home like a person leaving a party with her coat hanger still in the sleeve. There are moments when something doesn't break but rearranges. The world shifted 2 inches to the left, and I saw the outline of a door I didn't know I could close. The next 4 days, my phone was a museum of absence. No text, no call. The group chat I wasn't in kept humming somewhere else. Then a ping. "Hey, weird question. Did your bank maybe block the transfer?" Loan payment didn't go through. I read it twice. My hands didn't shake. I typed 4 words. Not family, not funded. Then I blocked my brother. People think changing your life feels like fireworks. For me, it felt like inhaling after years of holding my breath. Quiet and shocking. Before dawn, the pounding started. Not knocks. Pounding. Walls shuddering. Picture frames clinking. My father's rhythm. Derek's temper. I stood on the other side of the door, cup of tea warming my palms. The thing about boundaries is that people who fed off your lack of them call you cruel when you stop bleeding for them. I let the pounding pass like weather. 10 minutes later, the silver SUV idled away. Then the calls. Mom, Dad, unknown numbers. One text from a woman I barely knew. Carly, Derek's girlfriend. Her paragraphs came sugared with "under a lot of pressure" and "be reasonable." Reasonable is the word people use when your no finally means no. I packed an overnight bag and drove to my grandmother's house, a small white cottage she calls my retreat from the circus. She opened the door and said, "Took you long enough," the way some people say, "I love you," when they know you don't want to hear it yet. Soup was already on. She always cooks like she knows the future is going to be hungry. We didn't talk until my bowl was empty. When I told her the dinner, the laughter, the door, she didn't look surprised. "They'll always take you for granted if you're on the ground," she said, ladling more broth. "Stand up and they'll call you tall like it's an insult." Then, softer. "First time you say no to people who lived off your yes, they call it a betrayal. It's not. It's a correction." I slept on her couch with a blanket that smelled like cedar and a life where no one banged on my door for money. In the morning, I drove home to find a plain white envelope on my doormat. No return address, just $400 in 20s. A guilt payment, a hush fee. I let it sit under the table until sunset, then slid it into the trash with the grace of a ceremony. That night, my father called again. On the fourth ring, I answered. I didn't say hello. I said, "Why?" He spoke quickly, the way people do when the story has to outrun the truth. The missed payment had messed up a supplier deal, there were late fees, and then a garnish of serious consequences. I listened. When he said, "Jean, it's not like we used you. You're taking this too personally." I hung up, not out of anger, but because the conversation had ended 2 years ago and I'd only just realized it. It was strange, the calm that followed. I opened my banking app and scrolled, not doom scrolling, but truth scrolling. Every emergency transfer, every wire, every takeout order somehow charged to my card, every late-night Venmo to Derek. The $800 washing machine that broke in a month like it had a timer set for regret. 2 years of I've got you turning my stomach to stone. $20,000. I printed statements until my printer made that gasping sound of things that have done enough. I highlighted each bailout in a yellow so bright it felt like daylight in my hands. I slipped everything into a manila envelope and stuck a note on the front. This is who I've been. Ask yourself who you've been. At the post office, the clerk asked if I wanted tracking. No, I said. If it gets lost, it means it's done its job. She smiled like people smile at women who say strange things with a steady voice. On the drive back, my boyfriend Jonah called. He works odd hours in construction management and has hands that carry quiet more easily than words. You okay? He asked. I'm not bleeding anymore, I said. That counts as okay, he said, and let the line fill with the kind of silence that holds you rather than punishes you. Then, almost as an afterthought, he mentioned running into his ex, Mara, at a coffee shop near the site. She asked about you, he said lightly, and I heard something like a small hinge creak open. In my family, exes had a way of becoming audiences, witnesses for the prosecution. I filed it away without judgment, just a pin on a board. When I got home, the evening lay over my apartment like a soft coat. I made tea, opened my mail, and found an old utility bill I didn't remember paying. My signature looked off, too neat, as if someone had traced it through glass. I held it to the lamp. The J in Jean curled wrong. A tiny, skittering thought. How many times have I signed without being in the room? I told myself it was fatigue, set the paper down, and locked every door more carefully than habit required. The next day, the first shift in weather. Flowers arrived from Derek. Gas station daisies trying to be a bouquet. No note. My mother left a voicemail with the tone of someone suggesting I bring a side dish to Sunday lunch. It got out of hand, she said. Come by and we'll talk. By midnight, the second voicemail arrived, voice trembling on cue. Family gets through things, she said, stacking the word family 4 times in under a minute. I turned my phone screen down and watched the ceiling as if it could write answers in the plaster. Peace is a strange animal. It stands just out of reach until you stop reaching. That night, I slept with the envelope of receipts on the coffee table, a simple altar to reality. In the morning, I mailed it to my parents. I didn't include a return address. 4 days passed in a hush so complete it felt like snowfall. Then, abruptly, attention, like stage lights flipping on. A bouquet, a voicemail, an email from my father with a scanned photo of me at 9, popsicle grin, the caption scrawled underneath. We're still a family, Jean. It should have worked. It used to work. But when love only arrives as postage, you start reading the cancellations instead. That Saturday, a stiff white envelope appeared in my mailbox, the paper almost wedding thick. Inside was a cream card with gold edges, my parents' handwriting on the front, a lakeside resort logo stamped in pale blue. Family reunion in looping script. Activities. Dinners. A required family meeting. A line in my father's hand. Derek wants to propose a repayment plan in person. This is our chance to rebuild. I traced the flourish of his signature. The J in William curled wrong. A cold ribbon slid through me, familiar as the gasp a runner takes when the stitch hits hard. The world moved another 2 inches, and that door in my mind swung just a little farther closed. They say silence is golden, but in my family, silence was currency, spent only when they needed a new excuse. The following week, my phone turned into a confession booth. First, the flowers, gas station daisies that wilted before I could even toss them out. Then the voicemails. My mother's first message was breezy, as if we'd only had a little misunderstanding. Her voice brightened unnaturally. Jean, sweetheart, things just got a bit out of hand. Why don't you come for lunch Sunday? I'll make that roast you love. I deleted it halfway through. The next one arrived at 12:07 a.m. Her tone cracked, rehearsed tremble, perfectly timed. Family gets through things, Jean, you know that. Derek's been under so much pressure. Maybe just see it from his side? 4 mentions of family in 58 seconds, like an incantation meant to summon obedience. By the end of the week, my father joined in, the man who once told me I was too sensitive to survive the real world. His voicemail was just as dry. You're overreacting, Jean. Don't let a dinner joke ruin decades of love. Decades of love. What a strange way to measure selective affection. I poured a glass of wine, scrolled through the unreturned calls, and noticed something strange. The dates aligned almost perfectly with Derek's business loan payment schedule. The pattern wasn't love, it was logistics. On Friday night, a long email popped up. Subject line, repayment plan. It was a spreadsheet, color-coded but hollow. A list of numbers Derek claimed he'd start paying back sometime next year. At the bottom, a line in all caps. Let's move past this. We're family, right? I stared at the word family until it blurred. The same word he'd used to exclude me, now dressed in false sincerity. I didn't reply. Instead, I gathered every voicemail, text, and bank record into one digital folder. Not for revenge, just evidence. Proof that what I remembered was real. Jonah came over that weekend. He didn't ask questions, just brought Thai takeout and that steady quiet of his. He sat across from me as I scrolled through the documents. "You don't have to prove it to me," he said. "I know," I whispered, "but I have to prove it to myself." He nodded, then hesitated. "Mara texted me again," he added carefully. "She said your brother's been venting about you online. Some kind of post about people who abandon family for money." I laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was disbelief breaking surface. "Of course," I said. "He's always needed a chorus." Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I went through old files, statements, even a storage box of past paperwork. That's when I saw it, a copy of an old utility bill, the same one from before. My name was printed clearly, but the signature was too neat, identical to the one I'd found earlier. The same unnatural curl in the J. My chest tightened. Once is coincidence, twice is practice. I took photos of everything and emailed them to myself. Subject line, if anything happens. By Monday morning, a new envelope appeared at my doorstep. This time, not cash, but a short note in my father's sharp handwriting. "We've done so much for you. Don't throw it away over pride." And taped beneath the note, a check for $200, unsigned. A symbolic gesture, a reminder. We control the ink. That afternoon, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but instinct told me to answer. "Miss William?" The voice was male, clipped, professional. "This is Thomas Reed from Greenlight Legal. We're calling to confirm your co-signature on a $10,000 business loan for Derek William." I froze. "Excuse me?" He cleared his throat. "It appears your signature is on the application. I just wanted to confirm you're aware of the arrangement." "I never signed any loan," I said sharply. "Send me a copy of the document, now." He paused. "Of course. And Miss William, just to clarify, you will not be held liable. We've already identified inconsistencies." My heart dropped. The neatness of that forged J wasn't paranoia. It was evidence. After I hung up, my hands trembled, not from fear, but fury. Derek hadn't just used me financially. He'd used my name, my trust, my identity, and maybe not alone. That night, I sat on my floor surrounded by papers, receipts, and statements. I could almost hear my grandmother's voice echoing through memory. "When the well runs dry, people don't thank you for the water. They break the bucket." I opened my laptop, typed a message to a lawyer I'd met through work. Subject, urgent, forged loan document attached. Before sending, I stared at my name, Jean William, typed neatly at the bottom of the email. My name, my signature, my line in the sand. When I pressed send, it felt like signing myself back into my own life. The next morning, I called the credit bureau, froze my accounts, and changed every password. I wasn't their safety net anymore. I was my own firewall. That evening, Jonah found me sitting on the balcony, laptop open, eyes burning. "Did you do it?" he asked softly. "Yes," I said. "For once, I didn't clean up their mess. I protected myself." He smiled, a tired, proud smile, and reached for my hand. "You finally turned the lights on, Jean." "I just didn't realize," I said, watching the last pink trace of sunset fade, "how ugly the room really was." Inside my apartment, my phone buzzed again. This time, not a family number. A message from Mara. "Just so you know, Derek says you're trying to destroy him. Thought you should hear it before it spreads." I stared at the screen. The ex-girlfriend had entered the story. There's a strange kind of silence that comes after you draw a line in a family like mine. Less peace, more static. By the end of that week, even the air felt tense, like it knew something ugly was about to surface. The forged loan paperwork arrived by courier, crisp and heavy like it wanted to be believed. My signature sat there, perfect, too perfect, Every curve of that J in Jean was identical to the utility bill and the earlier mistake. But what sent a chill through me wasn't the signature. It was the address printed underneath, my parents' home. They hadn't even bothered to hide it. I called the lawyer I'd emailed, Ms. Carson, calm, sharp, the kind of woman who cuts through noise like glass. After I explained, she said in her measured tone, "Jean, this isn't a misunderstanding. It's identity fraud. We'll handle it quietly, but you'll need to document everything. Every receipt, every transfer, every message." Quietly, I asked. Because people like this thrive on chaos. They'll try to twist your anger into guilt. She was right. By that afternoon, my inbox was full of guilt. My mother's email subject line read, "Can we move forward?" Inside, she wrote about forgiveness and family dinners, sprinkling in the word misunderstanding like seasoning. And at the very bottom, "Let's not involve outsiders. We can handle this as a family." The timing was perfect. Too perfect. Jonah came over again that evening. He'd just finished a 14-hour shift, but still brought me coffee and a steady voice. We sat together, my laptop glowing between us, as I showed him the documents. He frowned. "They forged it from your parents' address?" "Yes." "Then your dad knew." I didn't want to say it aloud, but silence is an answer too. He hesitated, then added, "Mara reached out again today." I stiffened. "About what?" "She sent screenshots. Messages between your mom and Derek. They were talking about you, saying you'd been dramatic, that you were threatening lawyers. She said she thought you deserved to know." I exhaled sharply. So now the ex-girlfriend's the family messenger. He nodded, uncomfortable. She might just want to stir things. Maybe. Or maybe Mara was part of their slow campaign, keep me cornered between guilt and chaos. That night, I made copies of everything. The forged loan, the bank statements, the voicemails, the flowers. Every "I love you," followed by an invoice. I labeled the folder "paper cuts," because that's what each betrayal felt like. Small, precise wounds that add up to something mortal. Then I drafted a letter to Ms. Carson authorizing her to issue a cease and desist against Derek. No lawsuits, no drama, just a clear legal boundary. I wanted silence with teeth. Before sending it, I walked out to the balcony. The city buzzed below, and I realized something. For the first time in years, no one knew where I was or what I was paying for. I was invisible to their expectations, and it felt like freedom. But freedom has a way of summoning ghosts. At 10:46 p.m., my phone vibrated. Unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. "Jean?" The voice cracked slightly. It was Mom. I didn't speak. "I don't understand why you're doing this. You've always been the strong one, the responsible one. Derek's drowning, and you're watching." "I'm not watching," I said quietly. "I just stopped swimming for people who'd pull me under." There was a pause. Then her voice hardened. "Your grandmother's been worried sick. You know she doesn't have much time left. You're breaking her heart." It was a low blow. Weaponized love wrapped in guilt. I almost fell for it, but I heard something shift in the background. A whisper, a man's voice. My father, feeding her lines. I hung up without another word. By morning, the cease and desist was sent. The lawyer confirmed receipt from Derek's business address. That same afternoon, I got an email from him with no subject line, just, "You think you're better than us now? You'll regret this." No threats, just venom disguised as family pride. Jonah saw the message when he came by. "You should stay with me for a few days," he said. I nodded, though a part of me hated how predictable this all was. They'd pushed me to the edge, and now they wanted me to fall so they could say, "See? She's unstable." Before packing, I stopped by my grandmother's again. She was sitting by the window, a knitted shawl over her shoulders, eyes sharp even in old age. "They forged your name, didn't they?" she said before I could speak. I blinked. "How did you—" "Because I told your father once," she interrupted, "that if he ever lost your trust, he'd lose his son too. And he said, then I'll take her name instead." I didn't think he meant it literally. It hit me like cold rain. He knew. She nodded slowly. They all did. Derek doesn't tie his own shoes without your father's blessing. I felt my throat tighten. I sent a cease and desist. She smiled faintly. "Good, but don't expect them to honor it. They'll call it betrayal, not protection." That night, back at Jonah's apartment, I lay awake listening to city noises instead of the silence of guilt. He brushed my hair back and whispered, "You did the right thing." "I know," I said. "I just wish doing the right thing didn't feel like standing alone in the dark." He kissed my forehead. "Darkness doesn't scare you, Jean. It just finally lets you see the light for what it is." I wanted to believe him, But when I checked my email one last time before sleeping, there it was. A new message from an address I didn't recognize. No subject, just 2 words. Family meeting. Attached, a scanned invitation. Cream-colored, gold-edged, embossed with the same Lakeside Resort logo as before. And at the bottom, in my father's handwriting, "We expect you to come. It's time to make things right." I zoomed in on his signature. The J in William curled wrong again. The cream-colored invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days, its gold trim glinting like a bruise in sunlight. Every time I walked by, it whispered the same message: "You still owe us." Jonah found me staring at it one morning, still in my robe, coffee going cold. "You don't have to go," he said softly. "I know," I said, though I didn't sound convinced. "But part of me wants to hear what they'll say when they realize I'm not scared anymore." He reached out, brushed his thumb against the back of my hand. "You don't owe anyone a performance, Jean, especially not people who mistook your love for labor." That line stayed with me all day. Love isn't labor. It's a choice you make freely, not a job you're guilted into. That afternoon, I went to see Grandma again. She was folding linens by the window when I arrived. "You got the letter," she said without looking up. "Of course I did. It wouldn't be a William family crisis without a fancy invitation." She chuckled softly. "Your father always believed a polished envelope could fix a rotten message." We sat in silence for a while before she spoke again. "Do you know why they keep pulling you back?" "Because I used to say yes." She smiled, proud and sad at once. "Exactly. People who drink from your generosity too long forget it's not a spring. It's a well that needs rest. When it runs dry, they call you selfish for protecting it." I looked out at the garden, at the tomato vines twisting toward sunlight. "Do you think I'm selfish?" Her answer came without hesitation. "No, I think you're learning to price your peace." That night, I drove home lighter. Not happy, just clearer. The next morning, I sat down at my desk and wrote a letter. Short, plain, final. To my family. I won't be attending the reunion. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just finished being the version of me that bought love in installments. Consider every dollar I gave over the years, every transfer, every bailout, forgiven. What's not forgiven is the idea that love should come with a receipt. Jane. I printed it, signed it in blue ink, the real kind, with my imperfect curl of a J, and mailed it. A week passed without reply. It was almost peaceful. Almost. Then, out of nowhere, Carly, Derek's ex, called. Her voice was small, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Jean," she started, "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I thought you should know. I moved out. Derek and I are over." I stayed quiet. She continued, voice trembling. "Things have been bad. He's been drinking a lot, blaming everyone. Your dad's been covering for him, telling people it's your fault, that you cut him off, that you ruined him." My stomach dropped. "Ruined him?" "Yeah. He said everything started falling apart when you stopped paying his bills." She hesitated. "But I need you to know something. He's wrong. You were the only adult in that family." That sentence hit me like a confession I didn't know I'd been waiting for. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I believed their stories once," Carly said. "I thought you were cold, controlling, but I've seen it now. They don't want you back, Jean. They want your silence." Her words hung in the air long after the call ended. That night my mother called. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me, call it curiosity, call it closure, made me swipe the screen. "Jane," she said, and I could hear the fragility in her voice. "I miss you." "Mom!" She sniffled softly. "I know I don't have the right to ask for anything. Her voice broke. "I'm sorry. For all of it. For the dinners, for the things we said, for not protecting you when we should have. I don't know how to fix what we've done, but I miss my daughter." I sat there, quiet tears slipping down my face. For the first time, her words didn't sound rehearsed. They sounded tired, real. "I forgive you," I whispered, and I meant it. But when she asked, "Will you come to the reunion, please?" I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "No, Mom, I can't. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just done walking into rooms where my respect is optional." She cried quietly, thanked me for answering, and hung up. When the line went dead, I felt something loosen inside me. A rope I'd been pulling on for years finally went slack. The next day, I sent one final letter. Inside was a printed list of every dollar I'd given, $20,000, down to the penny. At the bottom, I wrote, "Consider the debt forgiven. What's left between us isn't money, it's memory. Spend that carefully." Then I sealed it, slid it into the mailbox, and walked away without looking back. That night, I slept for 10 straight hours. No calls, no pounding, no ghosts, just the sound of my own breathing filling the space they used to occupy. For the first time, I wasn't the daughter who fixed everything. I was the woman who finally stopped paying for peace. 3 weeks later, I thought it was over. No letters, no voicemails, just silence. Real silence this time. The kind that doesn't feel like punishment, but recovery. I'd started hiking again on weekends, taking Jonah's camera up the trails near Asheville. The air smelled like pine and second chances. Every time the wind passed, I thought of Grandma's words. They'll call you changed when you finally heal. Then one morning, a call I didn't expect. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Jean? The voice was tentative, cracked. Carly again. Carly? Yeah. I'm sorry to bother you, but you should know what's happening. Her words tumbled fast, breathless. Derek's in trouble. The business collapsed. He's been drinking nonstop. Your dad's furious. He says it's your fault. He's telling people you abandoned the family when they needed you. I closed my eyes. Of course he is. Carly's tone softened. But he's wrong. I saw it up close. Derek wasn't just reckless. He was enabled. Every time he made a mistake, someone bailed him out. Your dad, your mom, you. And when you stopped, the whole house of cards fell. You didn't ruin them, Jean. You just stopped holding up the illusion. I felt something uncoil inside me. Not joy, not anger, just a slow, sad understanding. Thank you for telling me, Carly. I guess I just wanted you to know, she whispered. You weren't the villain. You were the only adult. When we hung up, I stood by the window for a long time, watching rain trace crooked lines down the glass. The guilt that had haunted me for months began to fade, thin, then thinner, until it disappeared completely. That afternoon, I got another call. Mom. Her voice was quiet, raw. Jean, I just wanted to say thank you. For what? For forgiving me. I've been thinking a lot about how we treated you, about how much we took. Her voice broke. I can't fix what's broken, but I want you to know I see it now. I see you. I didn't speak right away. Then I said softly, that's all I ever wanted, Mom, to be seen. We talked for almost an hour, not about money or Derek or blame, just small things. Her garden, the soup Grandma used to make, the weather. It felt fragile but honest. When she asked again if I'd come to the family reunion, I said gently, no, not this time. She didn't argue, just whispered, I love you, before hanging up. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the lights low, a cup of tea cooling beside me. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't hurt. The next day, I checked my mail. Another envelope waited, this one cream-colored again, but smaller. Inside was a single Polaroid, my family's reunion dinner at the lakeside resort. Everyone smiling. My father at the head of the table. Derek beside him, thinner, tired. My mother, half smile strained. And there it was, my old chair, empty, perfectly framed in the center. On the back of the photo, my mother had written in blue ink, missing our girl tonight, love, Mom. I stared at it for a long time. No anger, no grief, just clarity. They were still performing a version of family that looked full from the outside, but I knew better now. That empty chair wasn't about absence. It was proof. Proof that I no longer belonged to a table that fed me guilt instead of love. I slipped the photo into my journal. Then I took my keys and drove. 2 hours later, I reached Grandma's house. She was on the porch, knitting, a small smile already waiting for me. I figured you'd come, she said. I just wanted to thank you, I told her, for always seeing through the noise. She set her yarn down and patted my hand. I didn't do much, Jean. You did the hard part. You stopped mistaking endurance for love. I looked out at the horizon, at the fading sun stretching over the fields. Do you think they'll ever change? She shook her head gently. Maybe, but that's not your job anymore. We sat there as the sky deepened into violet. Somewhere inside, I felt the last weight lift, the quiet knowledge that I could love my family without letting them burn me to stay warm. Later that night, I returned to my apartment. Jonah was waiting, 2 mugs of cocoa on the table. He smiled when he saw me. How was your day? Peaceful, I said, sitting down beside him. I went to see Grandma. He nodded, then hesitated. You seem different. I think I finally understand something, I said, tracing the rim of my mug. Peace isn't the absence of family, it's the presence of boundaries. He smiled softly. And love? Love is what remains when respect stays in the room. I looked around my apartment, the plants I'd kept alive, the bills I'd paid myself, the dinner simmering on the stove, a quiet, ordinary life, my own. On the shelf by the window sat a framed photo, just me and Grandma, taken last spring. I placed it beside an extra chair at my kitchen table, a new seat meant for people who showed up with kindness, not conditions. I poured Jonah another cup of cocoa, smiled, and said, "Welcome to my table." And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was missing anything at all.